Hello YouTube, Battle Carrier here, and recently I live streamed a number of times playing Fire Emblem Engage on Maddening mode, doing a worst characters only challenge run. Uh, this video is just going to be a brief retrospective on that. I'm going to go over what the rules were, how we figured out what the worst characters were, how the run went, what the characters looked like at the end of the run, and then I'm going to touch on why I think Fire Emblem tier lists are kind of a challenge, and I'm going to fix the tier list that we ended up with towards the end from the perspective of a semi-casual gamer, as I like to call myself. So the rules of the run were as follows. We were playing on Maddening, Classic mode. We ranked characters according to their average rankings in 10 tier lists that I've collected. Aleer and the 13 worst units had to be deployed whenever they were available. The title update features, such as the steel weapons and the well, were allowed, as well as the Fire Emblem Heroes gifts. Divine Paralogs, and therefore the bracelets and stuff, were not allowed. The expansion pass gifts were not allowed. That is the silver and the silver weapons. And this was not an Ironman. We were rewinding when someone died or I made a ridiculous mistake. Okay, so I'm taking an intermission from that first PowerPoint presentation to kind of go over one that I was going to do early on to kind of introduce the run, but I didn't end up doing that. So the tier lists that I collected as reference are as follows. We had Iced Coffee Gaming's YouTube tier list. Here it is in front of us. People give this a lot of flack for Tamara being ranked as an S rank and Anna being ranked as an S rank. But I gotta give the guy some credit, and we'll talk about that later, but he kind of stuck to Engage a lot more than a lot of the other people who have done tier lists for this game. Next, we had Danny Doyle's tier list. Here it is in front of us from YouTube. Actual Lizard from YouTube. Really great YouTuber. I like a lot of his Fire Emblem content. Mecha did a tier list, even though I'm pretty sure he only played on hard. But you know what? He did a tier list, so I'm using it. Imported Cheese did a tier list. Here it is on YouTube. Sane Aaron did a tier list as well. Here it is. Link King 7, he had Choops on as well, and they put together this tier list together. And Michael MH on YouTube also put together a tier list. We used this one as reference as well. Here is a community tier list put together by several of the folks over at GameFAQs. And here's a tier list put together by a few of the people over at r/Fire Emblem. The people actually voting in this, I think it was like 23 or something, but I digress. So these are the tier lists that we used. After we went through all of those tier lists, we ranked each character a number of points based off of how many tiers from the top they were. So if you look at Seedall, he had a 1 across the board because he was the in the top tier on every single tier list. He's the dancer, of course he was. He had a total at the end of 10 points. And then if you look at Boucheron, we had a 3, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 5, 2, 5, 6. So he had 47 points. I then sorted from largest to smallest to figure out the 13 highest tier characters. Now, we did have a tie for the final slot, unfortunately. So Diamond and Linden were tied for slot 13. This meant that I had to take one of them and leave the other behind. I use Diamond a lot more than I use Linden. And also we had a large number of people in this top 12 that joined before chapter 11. So we opted to use Linden instead of Diamond. Now, at the end of that whole process, we ended up with this tier list shown on the screen. I ranked the tiers based off of groups of 10 points. Characters with 10 to 20 points, well, 10 to 19 points ended up in the S tier, 20 to 29 A tier, so on and so forth. Jade and Bonet were in a tier of their own because they were the only ones who were in that group of 10 points. Now, looking at this at face value, the consensus on the S tier seems pretty solid to me. The characters up there, you could maybe argue Alear shouldn't be in the S tier, but since she's a force deploy, you end up using her the most throughout the game. And she is a pretty serviceable unit. Even a strength screwed Alear was still one of the stronger units on my team at the end of this last run. So, pretty serviceable S tier. The A tier and below kind of falls apart in my opinion. But you know what? This is what we ended up with, so this is what we used. I do believe that the impact of the LTC community on unit discussion is very apparent in this tier list, and I'll touch more on the specific characters that I believe are impacted by that later, and I'll also fix the tier list to more accurately represent a casual to semi-casual playstyle. I'm talking, we don't care about turn counts. We don't care about being the most turn efficient or any other kind of efficient. We just want good characters, we want to route maps, and we want to clear the game. I'm pretty sure that anywhere from 80 to 90% of players play this way. This is the group of characters that we ended up with, and this was the plan. So chapters 1 through 7, the first two paralogs where we get Anna and Sean, straightforward. They always are. It's the easiest part of the game, even on Maddening. Around chapter 8, it became pretty apparent that I didn't plan out a lot of really good tanks. So we ended up switching to go full evade tank with Lapis, picked up evade on her, as well as giving her the Micaiah engrave. When we picked up Jade, she was pretty good until we got Tamara. She was able to bait some people out for us to sweep in with our damage characters and take out the enemy. Solm was pretty straightforward. I didn't mention this, but chapter 11 was a walk in the park. We just kind of blasted right through it with Alear straight down the middle. I should have mentioned that here, but I didn't. Solm was straightforward. Jade, as I mentioned before, was delayed in her promotion because we had to wait for Byleth. But once we promoted her to Martial Master, oh my gosh. Martial Master Lucina is completely indispensable in a challenge run. I don't know what I would have done without Bonded Shield. Anna, Etier, Tamara, and Boucheron started standing out the most because they had some of my highest speed stats, and I could put them in the bonded shield with Jade. Alear became strength screwed but speed blessed. So when we picked up Erica, we replaced her speed +3 with sword power 3. Used a lot of SP books to get that, but Alear actually became pretty useful after that. During Dancer in the Mists, I got tilted by an exact damage kill on Tamara when I threw her out with Ike. Yep, stack up in her range. Oh. What?
I let my guard down.
And then shortly after that, there was a sequence of like her missing and then getting crit twice by a swordmaster that kind of got Tamara killed. I'll probably play that clip right now. Yeah, so lame, right? So the odds of that happening was about 1 in 125. I calculated out the probabilities of each individual event. So yeah, she had a 1 in 125 chance of dying there, and got the death. We tried the Corrin chapter right before chapter 17. I would not recommend that in a challenge run. Corrin chapter is harder than it looks if your team is not up to snuff. Chapter 17 went pretty smooth. I needed a rewind because Zephyia came in and killed Alfred by attacking him. Apparently, if she can't hit 2 people with Override, her AI attacks someone. Somehow, I have never triggered it that way. Crazy. Chapter 18 and up, Bouchron, Anna, Etier, and Tamara kept carrying. Jade, Alear, Clan, and Jean were very strong combat units. Alfred, Rosado, and Bunet were either benched because of deployment slots, and when they were there, they might as well have not been there. Chapter 22. This is the chapter where once you aggro Veil, reinforcements that don't have Void EXP come in about every turn across the entire map. So I tried to farm these a little bit, and it was a terrible idea. So I had to rewind several turns and then try to just kill Veil. Chapter 23. I rage quit out of my first attempt. There we go. Okay, I think I'm done. I ended up inheriting freeze immunity and then just steamrolling through the chapter. I tried doing it without freeze immunity the first time, and it was just so frustrating to deal with, kept putting me in bad positions, and just wasn't a fun time. Oddly enough, it seemed like when I did not have frozen characters, that the meteors that come down from the volcano, they tended to hit the enemies and target the enemies more often than my own units. They're gonna keep wasting their freeze stabs. Aw.
Huh?
Which, if there's a frozen unit, it almost always seems to target them and then some other areas. Chapter 24. Chapter 24 was unfortunate. I had Draconic Vibe Crystal. It's a randomizer mod installed on my game. I wasn't using it, but I did have it installed, and it had a bug that was resetting class inherited skills after you second seal them back into level 1 of the same skill. If you save and then load your save, they lose the skill. And unfortunately, because of a crash, I did have to reload at some point. So, Tamara did not have Sandstorm for the last several chapters of the game. And then, for this run, I just ran right down the middle, had Tamara kind of block some of the side characters, and just kind of took my whole team straight down the middle. And yeah, it was pretty easy. Chapter 25. This is the one with Dragon Mummy. I used Micaiah to... Oh my gosh, I misspelled Micaiah on this slide. Whatever. I used Micaiah to warp everyone into the middle. We range killed the thieves that come in from the sides. They come in and open the doors, but they stop within range of a three range attack from the door. So if you are quick about it, you can teleport everyone into the middle, and then when those thieves come in, you go in and Thoron them and longbow them, and then canter back out of the Corrupted Worm's range. Or stay in the Corrupted Worm's range, who knows? Maybe you could tank that hit. Once you've dealt with these two thieves, there is 0 probability of these doors opening. You'll flood the chapter with reinforcements to the point that reinforcements stop entering the map entirely because you'll hit the unit cap. But those reinforcements will never be able to reach you, and you could just take your time with the map. Chapter 26. This was the final chapter. This is often considered kind of a formality for a run, because once you've reached chapter 26, you should be able to clear it. I failed it twice. What am I supposed to do here? I can't kill the griffin because I can't reach it. Largely due to Tamara's hard nerf, not having Sandstorm, so she lost a big chunk of her power by not having Sandstorm. So we did the ring paralog, where you get flooded with units. We got her within arena EXP range of hitting level 5, so then we went back into chapter 26. Tamara basically took out an entire side of the chapter by herself, and we just cruised, taking out Sombron and completing the run. Alright, it's warm in my house, so we took off the jacket. Next I want to run over some challenges that we had with the run. You would think that the biggest challenge with our run would be that we were using the lowest tier characters in the game. And ironically, I don't think that was a problem at all. I think we ran into a couple other issues that were mostly having to do with the forced deployment slots and the way that we handled the overall challenge. For instance, too many of the units on the list were from before Chapter 11 and competing for early seals. This means we had a lot of late promotions, we had a lot of people hanging out in their base class for a longer period of time, missing out on some potential growths in some areas. This by itself isn't that bad of an issue. However, when you kind of add it into the rest of the other issues, it did contribute. Next, several units needed to be placed in suboptimal classes or roles to fill gaps in the team. Many of our characters had low dexterity or middling dexterity as an axe user. This meant there was competition for the plus hit in Graves. In retrospect, I probably could have inherited Sigurd's plus hit on a couple characters and made my run much easier. Many of our characters had a low strength or magic stat. It's hard to figure out where to put like minus might in Graves when you're not using some of the stronger characters in the game that can afford to shave off 2 to 3 points of might in exchange for a little bit of crit. This is probably the most back-breaking problem with our run. Deployment slots 13 and 14 were, rather than using the obvious units in Mavier and Vale, we were using high investment characters in those slots. That is taking a substantial amounts of experience from the rest of the team. So I was quite underleveled at around chapters 19, 20, 21, 22. If it weren't for some of my stronger units such as Tamara, Boucheron, and Etier, and a couple others, like Anna, we would have been having a little bit of trouble there. The other final thing was that we were unable to replace units who got bad level ups. We probably should have played this run on fixed growths, since we were using specific units and not able to replace them. Here's how my team looked at the end. You can see that it's a little bit different from what we planned. Alir, we were running her in Wyvern Knight towards the end to kind of help. Wyvern Knight has better bases and Alir was strength screwed. We ended up giving her Erica and sword power instead of Marth and speed, and we did keep her on killing edge with the Fire Emblem Engage. She also had a plus 5 Levin sword. Alir's magic growths ended up being pretty, they hit a lot. Clan, we had him in Sage. We gave him Corrin instead of Celica, because we wanted, since he was hitting for less damage, we wanted him to be more of a support character. He mostly only used Thoron. We did have an Elfire on him though. So we kind of were wasting his speed stat. Boucheron, we just went straight to Wyvern Knight, and Sigurd, we did not give him Berserker and Roy. This was because we had made the decision to give Alir Erica, therefore we gave Lapis Roy and gave Boucheron Sigurd. We didn't give him Lunar Brace as we planned, but we did give him Speed plus 5 to help him double more often. Our Boucheron was insanely blessed. He got so many level ups where he was growing strength, speed, and like 3 other stats, and that was just blowing my mind. Alfred, I think in addition to being strength screwed, he also was not in an optimal class. He was probably one of the worst people on my team. That is not a slight against Alfred as a character. He can work. He has a respectable strength and defense growth, and then his dexterity is reasonable. It's only his speed where he struggles, but speed in Engage is easy to deal with. You could just inherit speed from Lyn. Unfortunately, Alfred's level ups were not kind to him, and he was in a suboptimal class. So, wouldn't recommend Thief Alfred. Etier in Warrior was one of the most important characters on my team. With Speed Taker, after she got her first few kills, she just kind of popped off. We gave her Speed plus 5 in Cancer so that we could reposition her. Etier's not built to take hits, even in Warrior, so cancering her out of harm's way is the optimal way to play her. Jean, we had him in Sage. We gave him Celica towards the end. We gave him speed +5 because his speed in Sage is about as bad as Citrine's, but he does have a little bit stronger of a speed growth than Citrine. He was mostly a Thoron bot. What can I say? He Thoroned and he did some staff stuff. He was probably one of my stronger units in spite of that. Anna in I claimed that I put her in High Priest. That is a lie. That is a mistake. I forgot to switch that over to Sage. Our Anna was a Sage. We still gave her Byleth, but we gave her Speed Taker instead of Speed because I found out pretty quickly that she was going to be one of the strongest characters on our team. She was using a Bolganone +5. We gave it the Sigurd engrave once we got towards the end of the game. We also gave her offensive stabs a lot of the time, like Freeze and Silence. We did use Silence a little bit. It was pretty helpful. When you have Byleth, it gives her Divine Pulse. She has a high Lux stat, so she had a really high hit chance with the offensive stabs. Lapis, we had her in Hero. We did give her Roy, and like I mentioned before, we gave her a Void. She was more of an Avoid tank rather than a damage dealer. It still worked out pretty nice. Jade, we had her in Martial Master. Lucina, nothing different here. Towards the end of the game, we did give her a Void +10 to kind of help her survive if something tries to attack her. Bunet, we went the hero route. We gave him Marth towards the end for all the good it did. He was still worthless. Dual assist bot, basically. Tamara and Pickett was the crux of our entire team. We gave her Ike, Lance Power 4, Speed +3. We ended up switching Fencelir to Killer Lance because she got some early build growths. We put Byleth on the Killer Lance towards the end. Up until that point, I forget what we had on it. Javelin +5, we gave the Beginnings engrave towards the end. Before that, it was just the Javelin +5. Yeah, best character on the team. Definitely not bottom tier. Rosado, Wyvern Knights. Speed +3, Cancer, some weapons. He just kind of tried to leech EXP whenever I could get him to, and it did him no good. Linden and Sniper was so fun. If I had more resources to invest into Linden as Sniper, I think we could have made it a little bit stronger than it was. Obviously, Micaiah probably not the best for that build. I would have liked to see Sniper Linden with Crom, the DLC emblem. I think that would be a lot of fun, because you can engage Crom and then get +10 magic and then smack things with your high crit Radiant Bow. It would just be so fun. Anyway, we gave him Speed and Cancer. He started out pretty weak, but towards the end, he sometimes one-shot things with his Radiant Bow crits. It was really fun. And Sapphire, we had her in Warrior. She functioned as a weaker version of Panette, where her job was to do chip damage rather than kill a whole group of enemies, which, not a very good role. She never got in, even with a +5 killer axe and +5 killer bow, she would often even miss the one-shots on flyers with the bow, and that is insane. Anyway, that's how our team ended up. Now, what would I do differently if I attempted this run again? First of all, I would do fixed growths. Doing this with random growths was asking for trouble. Alfred, unfortunately, I wasn't planning ahead well enough. He was one of my highest strength growth units, and with a team that had a lot of low strength growth units, he was kind of wasted in Thief. I would have preferred him in Avenir, Halberdier, Great Knight, or Paladin. Or honestly, even General or something where he can just hit things really hard. Then we could have given him one of the minus might plus crit, like Lin engrave or something. Clan, we had him in Sage because I wanted to have a bunch of Mystic units. I thought having the fire from Corrin, having the bonus damage from Celica, and the range from Byleth would be pretty fun. It was fun, but Clan probably could have done better in Mage Knight. Obviously, he would have been even better doing the level 1 second seal thing I was talking about. But again, if you're already investing into Jean and Anna, investing into Clan like that, it's not worth it. Next, having my non-emblem ring characters being combat classes, this was a terrible decision. If I did this run again, I would probably say, you know what, Rosado and Linden, you guys have reasonable magic growths. We're just putting both of you in Martial Master and calling it a day. Have them be staff bots or something. That way we don't have to use as many staves on my mage units, which were some of my better combat units. It was always a difficult decision deciding whether to attack with them or to heal with them. I would invest more into effective damage weapons. As you saw in that previous screen, I didn't really invest into them this run. I usually do invest a little bit more into the effective damage weapons, and I always felt like it kind of didn't really matter, but you don't realize how much it matters until you don't do it. Not being able to one-shot Wolf Knights in the endgame with Rider's Bane, especially, is one of the more annoying aspects of not investing into those weapons. Evade tanks like Lapis in this instance would likely benefit from inheriting Holdout instead of something like Avoid, or Evade plus 15, plus 10. Holdout is much better so that you don't get randomly nuked by a 8% Thoron, or a 4% Thoron, I think it was. Yeah, those like 1 in 100 chances on your evade tanks, having holdout to stop those from killing your unit, especially on an Ironman, would probably be very beneficial. Now, if you made it this far, thanks for watching my video. As for what's next for me, Monster Hunter Wilds is going to be consuming all of my time once it comes out, even a little bit this weekend and next weekend because of the open beta. If you're watching this and you like action RPG games and you've never checked out Monster Hunter, definitely participate in the open beta test. It's going to be happening the weekend of the 6th and the weekend after that, and it will be coming out at the end of February. It is a fantastic entry in the Monster Hunter series from what I've seen about it. It's going to be extremely fun, and I just don't see having time for anything else. Monster Hunter is my favorite game series of all time. Even though I'm a strategy gamer mostly, build creation in Monster Hunter has always been really fun for me. As you can probably tell from my previous videos, I'm a big spreadsheet gamer, and Monster Hunter kind of scratches that itch a little bit too. Now, as for me, I'm probably not going to be putting out a lot of content for this game because the community doesn't have a need for a semi-casual gamer to be putting out content for it, because the game is already, well, the community as a whole is already very semi-casual friendly. There's a lot of people who are like, yeah, here's some meta stuff you could do, but you could also swap out this stuff to make it more comfy. And like, that is a far shot from a lot of other communities where like, this is the meta stuff, everything else is garbage. And if you don't use this meta stuff, you're garbage. That is the kind of sentiment that I am very much against. And that's why I think communities like Fire Emblem could use more semi-casual gamers. Eventually, I will be planning out a Fire Emblem Engage maddening Ironman run. And this is going to be really fun because I'm going to do random emblem recruit order. This will allow some of the DLC emblems to be swapped into the pool of emblems in exchange for some of the default emblems. So like you could go through a whole run without Marth, but you've got Hector. And I think that's really fun. I'm also going to randomize characters in some way. I'm thinking random recruit order. This will also swap in the Fel Xenologue characters, such as Rafal, Nell, and the Four Winds. Celestia coming into your team could be pretty fun. I'm also thinking of doing random classes and growths for each of the characters, or at least random classes. It's very tempting, but the randomization mod that I use doesn't reassign the primary proficiencies to be relevant to the randomized class. And I think this is a huge problem because even if, say, a Lear is reclassed into a Lance class, her main proficiency is still in swords. So she's probably going to be better in a class that has some benefit from being primary proficiency swords. And this is kind of how it turns out for most of the characters. So the only way to do it right now is to say forget about primary proficiencies. Whatever random class they randomize into, you have to stay in that tree. So like if they randomize into a paladin because they're a pre-promote, then you can only reclass them into a wolf knight. I think that's the other cavalry class. But I digress. I really want to do this run, but unfortunately, if I start it right now, I'm never going to finish it because of Monster Hunter Wilds. So that's what's next for me. Me and my wife might stream on Twitch or something for some of Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm not really sure if that's something anyone would even watch. There's plenty of Monster Hunter streamers out there that are much more interesting than us. So yeah, that's what's next. Thanks for watching up to this point, and I hope you have a really good time with Monster Hunter, just like I'm going to. See you later.